All right, we are live. Hello and welcome everyone to another Chat and Learn here with Power to Fly. My name is Mariella Marie, and as always, super excited to roll into this next hour with you all. Our guest speaker is calling from my birth city, Los Angeles, but she's normally in Miami. I know that we've got folks calling from all over. I'm gonna give you all a shout out for those who joined a little early. So it looks like we got Cornwall, New York, Seattle, Washington, El Paso, Texas, Milwaukee, Buenos Aires, Argentina, Chicago, Virginia, Bay Area, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, Romania in the house, New Jersey in the house. So great. If you're just joining us, go ahead and drop in the chat. Let us know where you are in the world. Arizona, I see you, Mary Ann. Thank you so much for dropping that in the chat. All right. So we are going to learn a lot today. And I know this is the topic that everyone is super, super, super interested in just, being more mindful about, being more intentional about, and just leveraging these skills and how we can network and build meaningful connections. So before we get started, I just want to go over some quick housekeeping rules so that we all feel comfortable and confident in this next hour. Of course, you could be doing anything else with your time today, but you're deciding to be with us. If you're here live, thank you so much for joining. If you're rewatching, thank you so much for rewatching. If you're live with us, you can participate in a number of ways. You can turn on your cameras if you feel called to do so. I believe in visibility. I'm not afraid to kick people out if we aren't being respectful of everyone's voices. So, of course, I know that video fatigue is real, so no pressure, no shame there, but I do want to extend the invitation for folks who want to turn their cameras on and participate that way. Otherwise, feel free to use the chat box, right? Any questions, any reflections, any of your own tips and tricks as well in the chat box. I really want to use this opportunity as well to build networking, our networking skills here. So use the chat box to drop any, links to preferred ways of connecting. I'll give the official invitation in a minute, but be grabbing those links if you want to drop those in the chat when I do extend that invitation, so that you all can, click on a couple of, whether it be LinkedIn's or websites, and support each other here because, clearly we're interested in the same topic. So let's try to practice what we preach here. All right. So if anyone would like to hop off mute during this hour, just let me know by raising your emoji hand or dropping in the public chat or writing to me privately, letting me know you'd like to hop off mute, and I'll add you to the queue. And as time allows, I will call on you as you are queued up there. If you do hop off mute, you will be featured in our live recording as this is being recorded. And I just want to remind you all, if you signed up for this chat, be looking out for a rewatch email. And that rewatch email will include a link to this recorded video that you can share with your community, your colleagues, your friends. And also it will include any links to resources that our guest speaker might mention throughout this hour. So be looking out for that email. And of course, please follow us on social so you can stay up with all the great chats we've got lined up for you. Now, if this is your first chat where I am moderating, I just want to take a couple seconds to introduce myself. So as I said before, I'm originally from Los Angeles. I currently live in Patagonia, the original lands of the Mapuche people here in San Martin de los Andes. And I love speaking about the importance of emotional intelligence at home, at work, and at play. So I might bring some of my reflections there. If anyone wants to philosophize with me there or share actionable tips, please feel free to do so in the chat box. Otherwise, I invite you all to support my project that is called the Positive Force Team. And you can go to thepositiveforceteam.org. You can sign up for our newsletter, or I'm happy to connect on LinkedIn. In just a few minutes, I'll drop my link to LinkedIn. Wow, I'll try to say that 3 times. I'll drop the link to my LinkedIn in the chat box soon, as well as you all when you drop your links as well. So just be looking out for that invitation. And so without further ado, I would love to pass the mic to our guest speaker, Alejandra, who's calling from Los Angeles. Alejandra, let us know a little bit about yourself, how you came to learn about Power to Fly, and what you're excited to share with us today.
Absolutely. I mean, you have, so much on there, and I'm definitely going to go through and about me, but my name is Alejandra Hernandez. I am a career coach. I'm a career and leadership coach. I came to find Power to Fly really naturally because I always want to be in the know of what are the organizations doing amazing work to support people to become more emotionally intelligent, to feel more confident, to feel encouraged, to feel uplifted and empowered. And so I came across Power to Fly and really just fell in love with the whole concept and how much they have, like how many resources they have. So I just found it, I'm assuming, I would imagine in the many research that I've done for different organizations and coming across Power to Fly, and just felt really, really good about what the organization does. And even the people amongst it, we connected maybe like a few months ago. And I just remember thinking, you were so cool. So just being able to see the people in the organization has also been amazing. And having Paloma, someone a part of the organization, reach out to me, I was like, yes, we won't go into vision boards too much or just being clear on your vision, but Power to Fly was a part of my 2022 vision. And so to see it come to fruition is pretty amazing for me. And I'm really excited to talk about networking today. It's something that for me is very near and dear in my heart, because it's something that I've struggled so much with as an introvert, as someone, I know someone mentioned being an introvert and having social anxiety. I feel you 100%. So I'm very excited to talk about this, especially as, we're going to go into me being Latina, being a first generation American, feeling like I didn't have a network and kind of almost feeling bitter about that. So we're going to unfold so much on what has supported me, not only when I was an employee in a 9-to-5 space, but also as an entrepreneur, and being able to build a network in that way too. So I'm excited to share all the juiciness of what I've learned through a lot of trial and error and a lot of making of mistakes, and share that all with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, we are excited to hear from you. And before we get kicked off with our live Q&A session, can you just set the stage by covering some of the principal themes for this hour-long conversation today?
Absolutely. So we are going to really go into the real purpose of networking. It is one of the reframes that I provide to my clients that is super incredibly helpful on reframing the purpose of networking. The other thing is, how do you build a network confidently? How do you expand your influence? What does that even mean? We're going to talk about that. And then other concepts that I use to reframe on how to network effectively and how to create massive change in that space. These are the things that we're really going to talk about today. Some of it, is going to be very tangible, cookie cutter advice. And some of it is really going to be down to emotional intelligence, as you mentioned in the beginning of this call. So we're going to cover both of those, really with the focus on how can we feel more confident as we're networking, knowing that this is important for our careers and our professional lives in general.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I love that you are highlighting the importance of emotional intelligence for something, as complex and as you can say, new age as networking online and things like that, just to be able to develop our career. So I really appreciate you in advance for highlighting emotional intelligence. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that you can pull up your awesome presentation that you've prepared for us today. And I just want to remind folks who are joining us as Alejandra is getting her presentation ready. We would love to hear you participate in the chat box. So just be sure to drop any questions, any reflections. If you already know that you want to hop off mute a little later, just go ahead and raise your emoji hand or let me know in the chat. Also, Alejandra, I'm going to ask you to do the Beyonce flip of your hair so that it's not on the mic and we don't get any feedback. Perfect. Yes.
And let me know, because maybe my earring might. So just let me know if I need to take off my earring.
No, you're perfect. You're perfect. All right, go for it. This is exciting. Thank you so much for this presentation as well. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Of course. Well, welcome. We already did a little bit on what this is going to be about. We're here to talk about how you can expand your influence with networking. And I'm going to go into a little bit about who I am, but as a career coach, a leadership coach, in particular for women in the workplace, this is something that I'm really feeling called to share on, because networking is so crucial to being able to build yourself professionally. And we're going to go into some of the experience I've seen with my clients, but I'm really excited to talk about this. And before that, I want to tell you a little bit about who I am and what I do. So I've got some, images here to kind of paint the picture, but I am a first generation American. My parents are Colombian. This picture is of me in Colombia, being, put to help my aunt with really a lot of the work. She has a coffee farm out there, but we live in a very rural place in Colombia. So when I would visit, I had so much fun. And just being able to have the dichotomy of what it was to, some people experience this, but, be American in Colombia, but not be American in America. And just being able to kind of toggle between these identities and what it means and where the merge is for me. And I grew up in Maryland. So there were definitely, we had a huge population of people there. But being in Miami, I definitely see the Spanglish a lot more. I see the merge a lot more. And I didn't really see that a lot in Maryland. So, grew up going to Colombia, visiting a lot. I love, adventures. I love going up to the mountains. I live in Miami now. So there's no mountains. We've got tropical trees, but no mountains. So every time I go on vacation, I love going to mountainous regions. And really, I'm a dog mom. And so I love to put that on here because it actually reminds me to tell you, He should be fine, but just in case, we may have a little dog barking here, and I'll mute very quickly if that happens. I love the beach, which is why, living in Miami is phenomenal. I live with my partner and my dog, and really a lot of what I find so important for me is health and the whole picture, mentally, physically, spiritually, what it means for me in my relationships. And so I take a lot of the work that I do and I internalize it before I ever go and attempt to have a client do it. Is, what does it mean to care for myself? What does it mean to be confident in who I am? What does it mean to notice when I'm feeling that imposter syndrome show up? What does it feel like when I notice, like, I don't want to go there because it's going to be it's going to be the boys club. And what does that mean? So doing all of these things, and this is what has allowed me to really support my clients and being able to flourish and prosper in their careers, is because a lot of this work is internalized, and I come from a place of really experiencing it, and how to move forward. And really my jam is women in leadership. So I'm excited to share this again, but that's a little bit about who I am. My career trajectory was a lot of stages in there. But eventually, wound up in career coaching in a company and decided to go off and do it on my own, because I wanted to focus on women in leadership. And I wanted to do it in this very particular way, where it was a 360 approach with emotional health, spiritual health, physical. How does it all tie in? Okay. So it's a little bit about me, and I'll pepper some in there as we continue going on. But as we get started, what I would love to see in the chat box is if you can tell me, on a scale of 1 to 10, how comfortable are you with networking? 10 being like super comfortable, great, and 1 being like, it's awful, I just don't go. I don't do it. So I'd love to get a feel for what we have here. Yeah, 4, 2, wow. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it looks like we've got 4, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, a strong 2,
Yeah, I
5,
love that.
3, I want to go, but I'm super uncomfortable with going. Great. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have a higher towards 10. So we've got, middle to low scores there.
Yeah. Okay. So prior to COVID 8-9, Mariana, that's really interesting. Like, for you to be able to see if there's been a dip post, pandemic and lockdowns, and if I plan the event better. Okay. Really, and just to really see here, one, I think the most important thing to recognize is many of you are here because this is not something that is rare. It's not uncommon to feel uncomfortable with networking. And so you can begin to see other people, a strong 2, 3s, 4s, 5s, and like how it's changed over the past couple of years. And so really being able to, and this hour that we spent together, is get clear on where is this discomfort coming from, and how do I reframe it so that I can do this thing, networking, that is supporting. Now, the next question I have is for you, what do you dread the most about networking? I'd love to know that. So maybe for you, it's going out and just like simply getting out of your house, or maybe it's being in a big crowd, or maybe it's being in a place where nobody else looks like you and it feels really awkward. What are the things that you dread the most, or having the conversation, or going up to the group? Not knowing what to say. Okay. Small talk. Okay. So dreading small talk, imposter syndrome, being an introvert and going alone. Okay. Yeah. It's like approaching, not knowing anyone and not knowing what to say, not knowing what to say. So look at that, how much not knowing what to say comes up, right?
Making the first move, people acting weird, imposter syndrome. We got a couple imposter syndromes. And yes, small talk makes people uncomfortable for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think this is so asking questions. Okay. Is it dumb? Which I think can go into imposter syndrome as well. Like, should I be here? Am I asking the right questions? Very introverted. I blame being the only child. Yeah. And so I think one of the themes that we've already seen in here is imposter syndrome, feeling out of place, and not knowing what to say. And not knowing what to say can show up in many different ways. Like, what questions should I ask? What should I say? Who should I approach? And things like that. People in cliques and feeling out of place. Right. Mm-hmm. Nancy, look how people are really like that connected with other people, feeling out of place, not feeling included. Thank you so much for sharing those. And my hope is, with understanding those themes, we can also go into these concepts that I'll share with you with that in mind. Okay. Now I share this quote and, research that was done where it says, according to HubSpot, 85% of jobs are filled through networking. And according to CNBC, 70% of jobs are never published publicly. Now, this was, pre-COVID era. We know a lot in the workplace has changed. However, this still remains true where a lot of the networking, really what it supports is being able to connect with people and understand jobs on a much deeper level when you're having conversations with people. And a lot of jobs, quite frankly, are not posted online. And that is such a real thing that I've seen as a career and leadership coach with roles that even my clients have gotten that haven't been posted online, or roles that have been posted online when the person already has someone in mind, but they need to post it online because of guidelines that the company has. And these are very real things that happen. It's like something's posted, and unfortunately, a lot of people are applying to it when really internally they already know the person they want to hire for the role. So this is the kind of things that we see. And it's on the one hand, we can be like, it's so unfair and there's truth to that. And on the other hand, we can also think about, what can I do? How can I take responsibility? How can I take ownership? And what can I do to benefit me? And so that's why I bring this up, because it's really important to, in this case, focus on this piece where it's like, what can I do in order to make myself in this space where I can get to know people, I can network with people. Now, the next thing that we have on here is really just talking about what networking is. I think it's so important to just simply understand terms and definitions of words, because sometimes we can get so overwhelmed by what something means when really we just look it up and we're like, oh, okay. That's how I felt about like 401ks. Like I could not for the life of me understand 401ks, and just looking it up makes it something where I'm like, okay, this is what this means. And it calms me down a bit, because our brain can really freak out about the unknown. So if we can allow ourselves to just create some like, oh, this is what this means and this is what that means, it actually calms our nervous system. So with networking, the definition of networking is the exchange of information or services among individuals, groups, or institutions, specifically the cultivation of productive relationships for employment or business. And what I will say is, as a career leadership coach who works with women, I have not seen so far a client of mine who struggles with building relationships in the workplace. A lot of the times, women that come to me, these are people that are known. Like when I ask them, how would your colleagues describe you? They would say that I'm kind, that I listen, that I make them feel like they really matter. A lot of these things are the things I hear from my clients. And so what I really want to emphasize is this aspect of like, women building relationships is something that they tend to have a strength at, is like that connection and that relationship building. The part where I think, and maybe you may resonate with, some of my clients get caught up, is this leveraging of relationships, with this idea because of the specificity of productive relationships for this. And that's where I begin to see where people get to like, oh, like that discomfort. It's like, it seems kind of sleazy, or I don't want to use people. I hear that a lot from my clients. And so it's important that we really just begin to put this out here and just see, networking is simply building relationships with this specificity around how does it support, again, mutually beneficial? How does it support the both of us in our employment or business? Alrighty. Now, I love asking this question because I have my next reframe is going to be coming up on the next slide. I have a completely different concept for what the purpose of networking is. And so what I would love for some of you to share too is, what do you think the purpose of networking is? When you think about going to a networking event, what is the why behind that? What is the why behind you doing that?
All right, so we've got making connections, get to meet other people and see how I can help them, learning something, building connections that maybe will help in the long run, creating connections, gaining knowledge, getting new ideas from others to make a connection and gain information. So these are some of the ideas that are coming right now.
All right. So a lot of this, finding your tribe. Very interesting, April. I haven't heard that one before. I like that. So building connections, making meaningful connections, get to meet people who are working in the fields. Like-minded people. Lovely. Perfect. Awesome. And so this is the first reframe that I'm going to give you on this next slide. And all of these things that I just read, by the way, are true. It's like making connections, finding your tribe. Like I met a woman that I have a really great relationship with now, great friendship, and it came from a networking event that I was really uncomfortable going to. So these are very true things. What I want to offer you as something that I don't see anyone speaking about is the purpose of networking. The way that I reframe it is to practice being the person you are becoming. And I really want you to sit with that, to practice being the person that you are becoming. I show up to networking events to practice being this new entrepreneur when I was a new entrepreneur, being this new entrepreneur and feeling confident in the business that I had. When I knew damn well at that moment, I was feeling the imposter syndrome, I was feeling the fear, I was feeling like, oh, I'm like new. I had to go and practice that beingness, that like the person, like I'm going to show up and I'm going to be courageous and I'm going to feel grounded in who I am. And I'm going to tell these people who I am and what I do, because it is who I am and what I do. Even if I don't have my first client yet, this is who I am and it is what I do. And so that is what I offer to you as a first nugget when you think about who you desire to be, the people that the people in your tribe. April, I think that was who it was who mentioned that. Like, who are the people in your tribe? And how are you the person that attracts those people? And same vice versa. People who struggle with the imposter syndrome. Okay, who is it that you're practicing to be? And how do you show up in that way? And then another person I think mentioned is like, I don't know what to say. It's like, how do you practice being the person who is confident and knows what to say and is genuine? And that is perfect, just as it is. It's like practicing being the person you are becoming. And this is especially important for career changers, because when you are switching into a different path, there's a lot of imposter syndrome, a lot of drama in the mind about, but you've never done anything like that. And you don't know what that industry is like. And so how do you show up and you practice being the person you are becoming? I was a social worker, and now I'm a program manager in ed tech. How do you begin to practice that? That's a real client that I've had. How do I begin to practice who that is as you go to networking events? Because what can actually be more difficult when we're making a change, when we're practicing new behaviors, is to do that with people that already know us, because then they place that knowingness of who I am onto me. It's like, yeah, but you hate networking events. You've just always been that way. You've always had anxiety around. So when you actually go to a networking event, you have this amazing opportunity to present yourself however you want to present yourself, because these people don't know you. So you can come up and you can practice being that person, and no one's going to say, hey, Mariella, but that's not who you are. Like, no, this is who I'm practicing, who I'm being right now. That is such an important thing. And I think it's one of the first reframes that I offer all of my clients in order to take the pressure off of like, I have to make connections. And what do I say? It's like, who do you want to be? Like, who are you grounding yourself in? Go and practice doing that. Now, one of the things I always tell my clients is you've got to let yourself suck in order to get better. And this is really, really important because, oh my gosh, I am a Virgo. I hate sucking at things. I hate doing it. Like, I get it, but you've got to let yourself be bad in order for you to get good. There's no way around that. If it's something that you feel that resistance with, that you feel like you struggle with, if you had a natural talent for networking, then, I mean, one, you probably maybe wouldn't be here, but two, it's like you've got to be able to see, like, if there's anything I'm struggling with, you've got to let yourself suck in order for you to get better. And so it really starts with going to these events, with practicing being the person you are becoming so that you can get better and better. And the other thing is oftentimes, especially, women that I work with, you have a knack for like reading people's social cues. So you're going to be able to see like when you're getting better. Trust me when I tell you, you're going to see when people actually start getting what it is that you do. And that's the art, is being able to express what it is that you do in a very concise way, in a way that other people can understand. And that only comes with practice. It only comes with you being able to read people and be able to see, oh, okay, they have like, I know this has happened where you tell someone something and you realize they don't know what the heck I just said. And I've had that happen to me, and I've had that happen to clients. So the way that you get better is by practicing, and you read people. oh, that person actually got what it is that I do. That person actually understands where I'm pivoting in my career. And that's how you get better. And that's how you also get better in interviews. And that's how you get better advocating for yourself in the workplace, because then you begin to speak with a conciseness that anyone can understand. Now, another concept that I want to go through here is, and this is in particular, again, I am a career and leadership coach for women. And so what I have found that really helps a lot too is women oftentimes want to support other people. They're the first to jump up, especially moms, the first to jump up and be like, I can help, I can do that. I can, and encourage other people like, no, you should totally go to that networking event. Like, it would be so great for you. And then really struggle with filling in their own cup. So one thing that I really like to provide to my clients is just imagine the people that you could have helped had they believed in themselves enough to reach out to you. There are so many people out there that could be helping more if people just felt safe, if they just felt good, if they just felt confident in being able to reach out and ask for that favor and reach out, or, ask for that connection and reach out and ask for, the kind of support that they need. And so it's really important to see it in that way for some women that I work with, because once they begin to understand like, wow, I could be helping a lot more people if people felt confident in asking for help in the same way. Like, imagine who would feel so good about helping me had I really feel the need and the worthiness to be able to reach out. And so one of the most common things that I hear from my clients is just like this ickiness of reaching out and asking for help and feeling like a user. That's really, really, really common in what I see. So just always imagine, like, how could you be helping other people if they had their confidence, their ability to reach out to you? Because everything's a flow. Everything is connected. So if someone's reaching out to you, then you reach out to someone else. That is the flow of how things work. Instead of creating a lot of the times, which is like this blockage of like, I'm totally okay if people ask me for help, but I just struggle with asking other people. It's like what we could create in this world if we all believe that we could reach out, we can network, we could connect with people and find our tribe. Like, trust me, you're going to meet some people and they're like, it's just not your people. And maybe that's not what it is.
Alejandra, can I say something? Because I really
Please.
love what you're sharing. I love it. And also maybe you want to take a sip of water because you've been dropping a lot of knowledge. I love speaking about decolonizing the mind, the body, and our communities. And this is like a key point in that, because we haven't historically speaking, and speaking of women in particular, since you keep highlighting the importance of, women networking here, historically speaking, we have not seen this modeled. And so maybe that has to do with the reason with why we're a little afraid or we're reluctant to do it, because it's like, or we see it as being sleazy because maybe the people who have been modeling it, historically speaking, we don't like that. It's like, oh, I would never do it like that. And so this is not how I want to do it. So I love that you're helping reframe this, because it has everything, in my opinion, to do with decolonizing the mind and how we approach building connections, making meaningful connections happen, instead of thinking that this is slimy or this isn't meant for me. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. And I agree. A lot of it is about decolonizing the mind. And a lot of it is not seeing people that look like you do this kind of networking, building of relationships while leveraging them at the same time. And then at the same time, we see that as like, oh, I don't want to be like that. And so our mind just goes completely on the other spectrum and goes, we're not going to do any of that. And so absolutely agreed. And I mean, I've had situations myself where I've been in a place and I've recognized like, oh, I feel really out of place right now because they're talking about things that I have zero like experience with. I don't know what it is to own a boat. I haven't been on a boat yet. So like, I'm still figuring out. So I understand that. And it's so, so important. That's why I like to reframe these things in specific. Like, how can you reframe it in a way that works for you? Now, the second thing is exchange and abundance. Now, this is a concept that I use in networking in particular but it really applies to everything in life, is how can you exchange in abundance? And when you can see this in marriages, you can see this in relationships. If one person is giving, and the other person isn't giving back, there's only a matter of time before that will become an issue. And so when we think about exchange and abundance, it goes way beyond networking. But in the concept of networking, what is really important is for you to be able to come forward with that what am I providing? Who am I? What am I providing to this other person? And I know some people mentioned in the questions, like, yeah, but I'm so early in my career, I don't really have connections, but that's only who you are in this like career aspect. But what is it that you provide as a person? Like, what is it, what are your strengths that you come in with? Are you someone who's able to see problems in a very unique way? What did you major in and what did that teach you? You know, you've also have to see like you're coming in with something. There's no way that there isn't anything there for you to exchange with. And so when you adopt this mentality of exchanging in abundance, it really allows you to be able to get grounded in who you are, what you provide. And when you show up in that way, you know that whatever someone is supporting you with, you could also support them with. And maybe it's not in that exact moment. Like, imagine if every time with your partner, you do something nice for them and it's like immediately they have to do something nice back. It's like, that's not how it works. Like, sometimes you do something nice and maybe next week they do something nice for you, or maybe next month they surprise you with something else. It doesn't have to be like immediate. But when you come with this concept of knowing who you are, of knowing what you provide, you have the capability of exchanging in abundance. And that's always with, I provide to you whatever I can, and you provide to me whatever you can. And you're doing that with that mindset always will allow you to, but in order to do that, you've got to be able to start with the first steps of like feeling confident in who you are, grounded in what you know, and that you can provide something. And that's where the emotional intelligence piece comes in. It's really about being aware of what it is. Like, where do I feel that insecurity? Okay, I just started my career, but like, you have up until you start your career, let's say that's 19, you have 19 years, 20 years of experience, of life experience. And there's things that you've been a natural at. There's things that you've learned. There's, even your experience as, whether you're a first generation American, a first generation college grad, or whether you've lived in a different country, you're able to provide a perspective that person just quite simply won't have because they're not you. And we all have different perspectives. And so always coming in with this exchange in abundance, I think, has been really beneficial for people to begin to see, because then you're able to see, oh, I do have something to offer. And it may not be a connection. It may not be the VP of an organization. But if I am someone who loves these kinds of problems and I'm speaking to someone, maybe I could see, hey, what are you really struggling with? And maybe that's something that I could support with. But just being able to come in with that really creates the space of like, no matter what, if someone does me a favor, I know, one, that I'm worthy of that favor, and two, that I can return that favor at some point. It may not be in the same exact way, but it will be in some way where it's still an exchange in abundance. And I don't feel like I'm just being a user and I'm just being sleazy.
I love that. And Alejandra, I want to ask you a question. What do you think of unconditional exchange? Should there be an expectation of, okay, I give, therefore, there's no due date, but I expect to be given something from you in return? Or is it better to be unconditional? Like, I'm giving because, I know that I have resources, I have this certain privilege, I have this certain perspective. And if this person is reaching out to me, I want to give that without the condition that you better give me something in return. Because again, I asked you that because I feel like it's also, going back to emotional intelligence and decolonizing the mind. I think, again, historically speaking, we've seen a lot of take. That leads to exploitation, that leads to burnout, that leads to, well, I'm not giving anything because nobody ever gave me any, and that can just be a really dark cycle. So my question is it smart or is it not smart to be, should it be conditional or unconditional?
Yeah. So I learned something very early on with my mom and money. And that was, you never ever give loan money unless you're 100% willing for that to never come back. Like, that was something I learned so early on from my mom through an experience that she had. And I think when we talk about unconditional giving, there's always this aspect where it's energy first and then everything else after. Your energy first, strategy second. Energy going into your networking event, strategy second with the elevator pitch. And so when we think about energy first and we think about unconditional giving, that can come from a wounded place. That can come from a place of like, I want to be recognized. I need to be seen. I'm doing all these things. It can come from martyrdom. And so that is what, if it's coming from that place, then yeah, it's probably not smart and it probably will burn you out. if it's coming from a place of like, I am 100% capable of giving this, I feel good about this, I feel also, like this person could really use it. And I feel like their energy is also coming in, and I feel like, okay, they can recognize me. Not even like I recognize you for blah, 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 but just simply like, hey, like I could really use this. I see what you're doing. I'm really inspired. And you're giving from that place, then 100%. But that always comes with energy first. Like, where is that place coming from? Because if not, it could lead to burnout, it could lead to bitterness, or on the other hand, it could lead to flow. And like I said, everything flows. Like when you give to someone else from that place of feeling grounded and confident and like really like just grateful, something comes back to you. It may not be that person giving it back to you, but something comes back to you, and it never, ever fails. It fascinates me every time. A quick little story. We had a flat tire. Someone helped us out. We gave him $80. And on Super Bowl Sunday, we won the little square game and won like $50 that day. After giving this guy $80 for changing our tire, and we were like, damn, we weren't expecting that. And it's just like, it's weird, but I'm telling you, it's just the nature of law. It's just the law of the universe. When you give and that place is from grounded and confident and good, like it comes back to you in some way. And I think from that place, absolutely give and notice, is it coming from a wounded place? Are you expecting something back? Because then that will create bitterness. So yeah, I hope that answers. Yeah.
It does. Thank you so much. And we've got folks in the chat box saying, thank you so much for sharing that perspective and for giving the distinction as well. It's been helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Now I think, let's see what we have here. Oh yeah. Awesome. So shameless plug, here we go. So listen, obviously I'm a career and leadership coach, and I'm actually going to do a 3-day workshop in March, which it seems like some people mentioned imposter syndrome. And my 3-day workshop is going to be about overcoming imposter syndrome. Reframes that we did here, coming up with reframes. It's going to be really nice because the way that there's a community here, we're going to create a community there in order to be able to really share what it is that we're going through. So this is really all about feeling confident in the workplace, overcoming imposter syndrome, and mostly for me, women in leadership. How do we really get more women in leadership, and specifically talking about things that keep them back? Because sometimes what keeps women back is not the same of what keeps men back in particular. And so just being able to talk about that in specifics, I'll be doing that March 22nd to the 24th, 3 days. And on the next slide, if you are someone interested in that, you can just hit this QR code, you can scan it with your phone, and this is going to take you to where to connect with me, where you can book a consult, where you can stay tuned for the 3-day workshop that I'm going to do, because I'm going to put out details on that in the next upcoming weeks, where you can sign up and all of those things. So if you want to stay connected with me, please scan this QR code. I'm happy to connect with you on LinkedIn and Instagram. That's where I'm most active, on LinkedIn and Instagram, my favorite places to be. And so if you really want to learn more about that, you're more than happy to put that in here. And I'll include some links in the chat box as well. But this 3-day workshop is going to be amazing. And again, I'm just really excited to be able to share about how we can reframe these things in our lives so that we can create more fulfilling lives. Because as many of you may know, work is not separated from life. If you're having a horrible, horrible job or an experience in the workplace, that's going to bleed into your personal life. So please feel free to scan that. I'll include some links in the chat, and then we can enter the Q&A.
Yes, I love that. Okay, so we'll leave this up for a little bit. If people want to take a screen grab, you have about 30 seconds left to take that screen grab, that you can make sure you get the QR code there. I'm also dropping in the chat an invitation to network in the chat box. You can drop your preferred ways of networking, whether that be your LinkedIn or whatever social handles. If you've got projects you want to drop in the chat box as well. Shameless plug for everyone here. We want to, really meaningfully build community. So feel free to drop that in the chat box there. And let's roll into today's questions. I also want to extend the invitation for folks to drop questions in the chat box. I know that many of you submitted questions previous to this conversation, but if anything has come up based on Alejandra's beautiful interpretation of all the things in her presentation, please drop those, as I already see that they're coming. This is great. Awesome. Yes. All right, so let's start with April here. What are some strategies for approaching the informational interview?
Great. So strategies for approaching the informational interview. I think first things first is always come in with clarity on what your intention with the informational interview is. So if it's a person working at a company, for example, that you want to work in, is understanding, what do you want to know about that company? Do you want to know about a particular policy? Do you want to know what their corporate culture is like? Do you want to know if they have a hybrid schedule? Do you want to know what their leadership looks like? It's really important for you to understand what your intention is going in and what you want to know so that you can make the most out of that interview. And again, that is not simply about you being a user or sleazy, but also like if the person shows up and they feel like, I don't really know why we had that conversation, that's not helpful for them either. And so be able to come in ready to understand, what do you want to get clear on, and who are you? What are you great at? What do you offer? Why is this company interesting to you? Come in really clear and grounded on like your elevator pitch. We can call it that. Your elevator pitch, which is what you do, where you want to go, and why you're qualified for it. Those three things: what you do, where you want to go, and why you're qualified for it. Come in with those three things and why you're reaching out to this company, clear intention, so that you ask questions that are going to be of most use to you and for them to also answer for you.
I love that. And thank you, April, for dropping that in the chat. There was a question that was submitted earlier, and I just want to throw this out in case you want to add anything else here. So how should we reach out to someone from a company where we want to work? Any tips for asking for their referral?
Yeah. So one of the big things that I would say is nurturing relationships on LinkedIn in particular is really great. And so if you find the person, it's just being able to sometimes, so let me not get ahead of myself. If you find the person and they are active on LinkedIn, then engage with them, like their things, like follow their page, see what they're up to, and just begin to engage with them and nurture those relationships from a genuine and authentic place. And if they're not on LinkedIn, if they're not active on LinkedIn, then for one of the things is like, if you're able to find a connection request on LinkedIn or an email or something like that, I would be very direct about your communication with them. So nurture. And then when you do send out that communication with them about their company, I would be really direct. I would just say clearly what it is that you're looking for. I would, even if you have a job posting in mind, even mention the job posting, like just be clear, because I think right now what people are so exhausted by is like the inauthenticity of like, hey, just want to like have a chat. And if that's actually what you want to do, like if you just want to get to know the person, then great, like message that. But if what you're really interested is getting into a company and there's this role, then say, like, one, always, I call it like a compliment sandwich, like always compliment them, always like, and we're great at that. Like just always compliment them. What is it that attracted you to their profile? What is it that they're doing? And be inspired by them. And then again, that exchange in abundance, like always show up from that place. And then from there, say directly, hey, I saw this. And given, your career path, I would love to get to know more about you and the organization. I don't want to take up too much of your time, and just super clear in that way. That's how I would approach it.
Great, thank you. And actually diving deeper, if there's anything you'd like to add, this follow-up question, what is the best strategy to create networking that leads to opportunities, not just talking? So you did speak about, the kind of the superficial outreach or the ingenuine outreach. Is there anything that you've seen over time, especially as things have moved more to the virtual space in this context after, during the pandemic and all that? It's hard for some people to be authentic with like typing or just with, sending a link to something. And how do you really use that opportunity to get to know that person or show your authentic self? So what is the best strategy to create networking that leads to opportunities, not just talking? And my extra little tidbit would be, and how to do that authentically.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things when it comes to networking for opportunities and not just talking is going, and a lot of this, I'll pretty much go back to a lot of the similar things, is being super clear about your language and what it is that you're looking for. And so a lot of times what can happen is people are going to networking events, but they don't have that clarity. They don't have the vision, and they don't feel like grounded in who they are. And so it is just a lot of conversation about different things and random things. But I think it's really important, if you're going to a container where it's networking, like it's the container of networking. So that people are up there. It's not like when you go to a bar and you sit down and you're like, this is what I do and this is what I'm looking for. Like it's not the container for that. But in a networking event, it is. And so show up, be clear on that. And then that way, when you're speaking to people, they can automatically begin to understand, what kind of opportunities it is. And don't feel like, just begin to notice, like, are you feeling ashamed because you're saying like, what I'm looking for next is an opportunity for, does that feel weird? Because if it does, and there's probably some things to check in with there. are and address those things. And as you begin to go, again, practice the person you are becoming. So I think clear, concise language is really important, and connect with them. Like if you know, I've gone to networking events where it's like speed networking. If you know that's what it is, then have like a QR code like I have. And you're like, hey, it's only like a minute, but I really, would you like to connect on Instagram or on LinkedIn or whatever it is? And that way you can reach out to them afterwards and be like, hey, met you at that place, really, really fun. And then connect with them from that place. Have something ready for you to be able to connect with them. I don't think business cards are bad. I just don't think they're the most effective, to be quite honest, with being able to stay connected with people. So I would do, if you're very active on LinkedIn, I would do LinkedIn, wherever, like for me, Instagram and LinkedIn are it. Instagram, because especially their stories, I'd be like, oh my God, there she is. And I'll like click on them. So just do whatever works for you, but connect with them, come in with clear and concise language on what you're looking for, be yourself. And then from there, connect with them on something external to that networking event. So you can nurture it from there.
Yeah, it's amazing to see, just as I've seen more and more people create their own content, regardless of if it's for the company they're working with or for their personal branding. Like let's say newsletters. If you sign up for someone's newsletter, that automatically gives you something to talk about because they've worked a lot on the content, and you can have something directly to speak about there. It's worked for me. I've seen people do it with me, and so I just want to throw that out there, that is one way to just kind of be more intentional there. Okay, so here's another question. How can we make sure we're adding value to the networking relationship? I'm a junior with 2 years of experience, and I'm hesitant to reach out to more senior professionals since I can't identify the value I would bring to that connection.
Okay. So this kind of goes back to the exchange in abundance. And what's this person's name?
It was
Anonymous?
submitted. Yes,
Okay.
it was anonymous. But actually, if this person is here and you submitted that, let us know if you don't mind
Yeah.
putting yourself out there.
Yeah, I would say really going into what are your strengths that you have now, and you have them. Like you had strengths at the age 10, like you have strengths now. So what are the strengths that you're coming in with? What's your perspective that's unique? Like what's your experience in life, and how is that unique? I would begin to really look into those things, and even begin to see like, how does my mom describe me? How does my coworker describe me? Like you said, you're a junior, but you have people around you. How would they describe me? And then you'll begin to see like, oh, okay, I seem to have an ability in this and this and this. And again, life experience, what's your perspective coming in, and come in with that. Like you have a lot of things already to you. The other thing I'll say is going to senior leadership, like that is huge because it shows your level of commitment and ambition to be able to clearly state to someone else, hey, this is what I'm looking for at a senior level. That really, like, if this is really like someone in leadership and they take that to the heart, being a leader, they're going to love that. They're going to be so proud and so happy to see someone at a junior level coming to them and being like, oh, this is what they're looking for. And that's a connection for you to build. And at the same time, the last thing I'll add is you still provide value in that they are able to sharpen who they are as a leader. Like it's never one-sided unless you come in with that mindset that it's one-sided. So just look at what it is that you're providing, what it is that you bring. And true leaders are here. That's the role of a leader, is to bring people up, is to sharpen people's skills, is to put them in places where they're going to thrive. And you're giving that person an opportunity to do that as long as you're coming in again with a clear vision, what it is that you want to do, and where you are now. What are the strengths that you have now? So that's what I would say for that one.
I love that. I love that. I also, can I add something too that I've
Yeah.
seen work? If you can help solve a problem, what
Mhm.
it's more likely that they're going to say, okay, I will consider what you're throwing at me for sure. Because
Mhm.
if you say like, hey, I see this is going on and I've been really developing this, or I'm really interested in getting to this, I think that this can help solve the problem that you all are working on. I think that,
Mhm.
coming with some solutions, whether you think whatever, like taking the hierarchy out, whether you're junior or entry level or whatever, I think that, as you said, looking at it from the leadership side, that it is an opportunity for them as well. I love that. It's a
Yeah.
nice exchange there.
Yeah. And you just triggered something that reminded me. I love what you just said. And it was a lot of the things too, is you've got to realize when people go so far up the ladder, or when people have gone just really beyond wherever the entry level is, oftentimes they forget what it's like in that space. And so their mind doesn't work in that same way. And so as an example, I like to give like someone who's, 10 years into their exercise fitness journey is not going to remember like the little problems and the solutions that someone who's just now starting to go to the gym. And so when you bring that perspective to someone, that fresh perspective of like, I'm here and I think I see that problem you have, and I think we could solve it in this way because I'm here and I know what it's like right now in real time.
Yes, 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 yes. All right. So I told you all that time would fly. We've got about 9 minutes left. So if anyone wants to use the last couple minutes to hop off mute, okay, perfect. Go ahead, Dominique. Let me just give you the right to unmute yourself and go ahead and hop off mute.
Hey everyone, and thank you so much for this call. It's been wonderful. My question is, as someone that's transferring into a new career, completely not similar to anything that I've done before, what is the best way to network with people in that industry? Like with confidence and just boldness and all the adjectives that I want to throw in there. But what's the best way to network and just stay true to yourself and just to show people that you're hungry and willing and able? And yeah, I'm done now. But yeah, what's the best way?
Yeah. So Dominique, right?
Yes, Dominique.
Okay. So what one I would say is begin, because you have a thought, Dominique, that these are completely separate things in the universe. And I think that thought is not serving you, because it makes you feel a little bit like, oh, like how do I bridge this big gap? So one, what I would begin to do for you to practice is, what are the similarities? You've been looking at a lot of the differences. What are the similarities? And that could even be like who you need to show up as. It doesn't have to be this is the industry and this is the industry, but who do you need to show up as? What is the problem that they're solving and what are the similarities in that? So I'd start with that because that's getting more at the root. And then the other thing in terms of how do you network with people in that space is, well, one, I would find, do you know what spaces they're in? Like, have you found networking events for the kind of industry and the kind of people you want to network with?
Not really. It's more been like a virtual type thing. Like I got connected with this Zoom call today through Baddies in Tech. That's one way. They drop a lot of great resources, but I've tried to look for things in Fort Lauderdale in the UX UI space, but I haven't really seen a lot.
Yeah.
If they are in Florida, they're like really like deep in Miami.
Okay. So one, I totally think it's fine to be in the virtual space anywhere, because again, practice being the person you're becoming. You said all those words, the boldness, the confidence, like that, just begin to practice that anywhere, so that whenever you do find something local, you can do that. And someone I think mentioned something in the chat too, by the way, like Baddies in Tech could be one. So I would find the spaces, even if it's virtually, practice the person you're becoming, begin to witness now the similarities so that you can begin to see, okay, this bridge isn't as scary. I can cross this bridge. And then there was one other thing that I just had on my mind. The other thing I would say is, when you do show up, do you have your elevator pitch? Like, do you have what it is, how you're transitioning?
No.
Okay. So I would work on an elevator pitch. So what you do, where you're going, and why you're qualified. And why you're qualified is going to be big for you, because that's where you get to find the similarities. That's where you get to find, like, this is what I did here, and this is why I can translate that to here. So just notice where your brain begins to be like, they're completely different things. I don't know how this is gonna go from here to here. Notice that, and then just begin to be like, okay, but in this role, I needed to be X, Y, and Z. And in this role, I would need to be X, Y, and Z. Same thing. It's just a different model. I would need to be able to have great attention to detail in this role. And UX, UI, you definitely got to have some attention to detail. So just begin to find those similarities. And then you're going to begin to see how you already have that first step, and you show up practicing being the person you're becoming.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yes, I love that. Thank you, Dominique, and good luck. Also, for those who don't know, I love that elevator pitch is getting like, it's a super buzzword these days. I was born in Los Angeles, so like the elevator pitch is like, it comes from Hollywood. I think it comes from film. Like so if you're on an elevator randomly with, Martin Scorsese, and you're going up 6 flights of stairs, and he's in the elevator with you, and you want to be in his movie, you have 6 flights, to tell him why you need to be his next lead actress, for example. So it's
Exactly.
like kind of putting everything into one, short amount of time, but being very like high level and, trying to give that energy off so you didn't
Yeah.
get hired, just to let people know. Cause I know it's like a term that is new for a lot of people. And I love that it's now in, the career world. So I just wanted to let folks know
I didn't know the
might.
history of that. That's really cool. That's really cool. Because I've read stories of people who, yeah, like literally in the elevator, they had to go ahead and explain something to someone. And I've seen it in films too, but yeah, no, really cool.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a private question here, and then we might be out of time. So I'll give you the final word after this question. So this
Mhm.
private question reads: I struggle most with speaking up in crowds and having eyes on me. Usually, I just find 1 to 2 people I feel comfortable talking to for some reason, or just really invested in what they're working on rather than trying to reach many people at once. How do you work on reframe speaking confidently in a crowd?
Yeah. So the first thing that I would check in with is, what is the discomfort of speaking up in a crowd? Where does that come from? I would just dig a little bit into that. Like, what do you think is going to happen if you do speak up in a crowd? Do you think you're going to say something dumb? Do you think that someone will make fun of you? Do you think that nobody will hear you? Like, get clear on what the fear is, because it's so powerful when we just bring awareness to something and we're like, oh, that happened because of this, or that happened because of my upbringing. That happened because I was raised with like 6 brothers and sisters and nobody ever heard me. So I just begin to examine that. So I would just look at what's going on there, what's going on with my fear of speaking up in crowds, and get real clear. Journaling is one of my favorite things to do. Just journal on it until you feel like there's nothing else to come out, and just ask yourself, like, why am I afraid of speaking in crowds? And something might come out that you didn't realize was there. And then the second thing that I would say is, you mentioned building, like, meeting a couple of people and getting really invested in who they are, and I'm assuming you think that might be a bad thing, and I don't necessarily think it is. I think that if you go to a networking event and right now you allow yourself to build a relationship with 1 or 2 people, allow yourself to nurture those relationships. That's okay. If you want to go deep with a couple people, that's okay. And if there's a fear that's holding you back on speaking up in front of a crowd, also address that. It's not if or. You can do both. You can be like, I'm totally confident in speaking up at a crowd. And this is me. When I go to a networking event, I usually will connect with maybe 3 people. And that's my nature. I like to go deep with people. I like to really get to know who they are. That's okay. That's not a bad thing. Just follow up, connect with them, nurture with them. And down the line, if they're a friend of yours, and even ask, like, hey, did you understand what I said the first time we met? Like, did you have any idea about and if they say, yeah, I had no idea, then you can begin to get feedback. So I don't think that is bad. And I would explore around where the fear of speaking up in a crowd is.
I love it. I love it. Oh my goodness. This has been such a great session with you. Thank you so much for dropping knowledge. Thank you everyone who's participated in the chat box. Thank you, Dominique, for hopping off mute. So we just got about 1 minute left. Alejandra, can you please leave us with some food for thought? I know you've said a lot so far, but just one thing we should remember as we end this conversation, and then remind us how we can connect with you.
Yeah. So I think a food for thought is always about, what is your vision? What do you want people to say about you when you are no longer here? What do you want people to know about you, say about you, and live your daily life in accordance to that? So I think the vision is really important. And empower change. So empower is spelled HER in the end, just as my name. So empower change on Instagram, on Facebook, on LinkedIn. I'm AI Hernandez. And please do feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. If you just look up Empower Change Alejandra, it's only one of me. You'll find me on LinkedIn. And I'm so happy to hear from you.
Thank you so much, Alejandra. Thank you everyone for joining, and be yourself, be your authentic self. Try to practice all the things that Alejandra has preached through this whole hour, because I definitely support it. I love the emotional intelligence focus, the self-worth focus as well, that you are worthy, I am worthy, you are worthy, we are worthy. So just, if you didn't take anything else from this hour, remember that, everyone. And we'll see you on the
Yes.
next